Welcome to Dissecting Tyrone. I'm Jason.
And I'm Brandon.
And today we're talking about It Takes a Village. It's about co-parenting, and it's episode 7. First of all, I just want to say that co-parenting is a huge issue. We talked about it briefly on past episodes, but we want to do a full episode and just talk about the dynamics of parenting and how hard it is to navigate that situation with somebody that you might not have a great relationship with anymore.
Right.
Brandon, co-parenting, what does that mean to you? When you hear that term co-parenting, what does that mean?
It means working together for the embetterment of the children that are involved in the situation, being able to be professional. Obviously, this is when both parents are not in the same household, so it's one of those things that we as parents need to work together to make sure that our children have the best opportunities and they're not privy to any of the drama that's going on maybe between the two parents.
I can agree with that. In short, it's just two separate households that are trying to operate as one.
Right.
And that's hard to navigate, especially when there was like a divorce involved, because usually divorces don't go well, or we wouldn't be getting divorced. And so a lot of times you can have people that are trying to have it their way when it comes to parenting, and the other person might do it a different way, and they think their way should win over, and it becomes a big fighting argument. So before we get into the negative aspects of co-parenting, what are some good things about co-parenting?
I think some good things could potentially be once somebody moves out the house or you guys get divorced, and they may find a significant other that is actually willing to be professional, willing to be there for your child as well. They may get that extended parent or that bonus parent. Like I said, it takes a village. So sometimes dad may say something and it doesn't resonate. Mom may say something, it doesn't resonate. But somebody who's on the outside with experience as well, they may say something. And if they have the best interest of that kid or those children, sometimes those kids listen, and then it's like, it clicks. Now I understand. So I think that could be a positive benefit from having two separate households and doing some type of co-parenting.
I definitely can agree with that, and I've been a part of that because I've been a stepfather before. I will say this: I do believe in a happy, healthy relationship. I mean, that's the top tier. If it's a happy and healthy relationship, then the goal is to have both parents in the home. We all know that. We can all agree with that. If that's not possible, I think sometimes it's better to have a co-parenting situation, because if the kids are constantly watching arguments and fights and just all the ins and outs of a toxic relationship, then that damages them and their idea of a relationship. So when they get older, a lot of times we repeat those cycles. So to me, co-parenting can be a benefit, because if the relationship is damaging to the children, then sometimes a healthy co-parenting relationship is better for them.
That's true. And I can also see it where not necessarily the bickering or the argument back and forth in a household, but sometimes the lack of emotion, the lack of love, and you don't even have to say anything, but kids actually pick that up and they know, and they may think that that's normal. So they are going to mimic what their parents are doing. So they may grow up maybe socially awkward, or they may grow up thinking that it's okay just to ignore individuals and not even say anything. So it definitely helps to have a positive relationship, even though you guys may be separate, but still have a positive relationship, good enough for the child or the children, so they can see that, and then they can start mimicking that, and they get that good insight from both parents, and they can navigate through this world.
I think that's important, what you just said, when you talked about how the kids can pick up on it. I was married before. That's no secret. We were married 12 years, and the marriage really was never good. You know, a lot of people didn't know that, because, you know, I'm more old school, so what goes on in your home stays in your home. So we kept a lot of things private. But we thought that we were doing good because we didn't fight in front of the kids. We didn't argue in front of the kids. You know, the kids never saw us, you know, going back and forth. But the reality is that, like you said, like, the kids pick up on that. Especially I had one daughter, my middle daughter, who has a high emotional intelligence, and she can really pick up on those things. And it really bothered her, and I didn't know till one day she made a comment to me that just really opened my eyes. And I'm like, man, she sees what's going on, even though she doesn't see what's going on. And I think sometimes we forget about that, and people stay for the kids, and they don't realize that staying for the kids when it's unhealthy doesn't benefit the kids the way we think it does.
It's funny that you said something about staying together for the kids. I think based on my experiences, I will always say you never do it for the kids. You always do it for each other, because at the end of the day, you say that you're going to do it for the kids and you just stick around. Let's say the kids are 10. You guys are going through something, and let's just do this for the kids and see what happens. Well, when they graduate, I think everything, more than likely, if it's not fixed, it's just going to magnify when they graduate. They get out the house. Now it's you two. Now you guys have to actually lock in. You guys have to with each other, because now it's like we don't have the kids are going to come and go, but it's just us two. So if you haven't resolved any issues that you had in the past, it's going to magnify, and now it's going to blow up. And all that time, those 7-8 years, it's almost like you wasted them, because now you were trying to put a Band-Aid on something. Now the Band-Aid is ripped off, and it's like, okay, well, where do we go from here? And you may still end up getting divorced, or you may separate. And now we may have allowed somebody, or the people who probably should have been in our lives, if it does ultimately end in a divorce or a relationship end, somebody who could have been in your life that could have added value, you may have missed that person the last 8 years. And it's just like, now what do we do?
I agree, and for me, I love romance. I write poetry. I do all those little sucker things that people, the brothers be like, "That's some sucker stuff," but that's what I like. That's what I enjoy. I love romance. I love physical touch. I love to compliment my woman, to tell her she's beautiful, to go on trips, and I want my children to see that, and I want to model that behavior for them. As my daughters, I want them to realize, hey, this is how a man should treat you, and I want to show my sons how you treat the woman that you love. And when you're staying just for the kids, which I did at some point, when you're staying just for the kids, they don't get to see that. They get to see two people who they can tell, because like you said, they can pick up on it. They can tell aren't really there emotionally, but they just get through it. And I don't want to model that behavior for my children.
Yeah, and from my personal experience, when I was towards the end of my marriage, I was trying to fight as hard as I possibly could. And one of the things for me was, let's just do it for our son. And ultimately, obviously, it ended in a divorce. But I'm thankful that it just wasn't just for the son, because again, like I alluded to earlier, if we didn't work out whatever differences we had or the issues that were going on, it still would have magnified. And we're literally lying to our child about trying to stay together or trying to make it look good. And at some point, he would have called me out. He would have called her out and like, hey, what's going on? Maybe he couldn't process it or put it in good terms, but he's going to know something is going on. And it's like, no, you just have to sometimes let things die to be able to regain yourself and be in a healthy relationship or a healthy co-parenting relationship. Because the fact of the matter is, being under the same roof, and it's maybe not the way or ideal that it should be going, literally it's going to weigh on everybody, and nobody's going to be happy. You're always going to constantly be trying to hide to do this or hide to do that. And you go out in public and you may attempt to try to hold hands, but people start looking at it like, man, something is off with you. If they know how you guys were prior, now you're in this rut. It's like, okay, what's going on? And then that's when the tears start flowing. People start breaking down. People need even more therapy, because now we've tried to put this Band-Aid on this lie, and we're all damaged, broken people. And the kid or the children had nothing to do with it, but since they were in that household, now they're a part of the problem. So the only way to be able to get back to healthy is everybody getting the counseling, everybody doing the work that's necessary that they need to do, and then you move forward from there. But yeah, never do it for the kids. Always do it for each other. Do it for yourself and do it for your spouse or your significant other, and then the family unit can come back together if you guys choose to stay together.
No, I agree. I agree. You just can't do things for the kids. Now, let's say this. Divorce happens, or you were never married, right? But there's a child involved or children involved. Now we have to co-parent. How do we do that effectively?
For me, I think first and foremost, boundaries. So you have to set boundaries for yourself, because sometimes people may not operate in good faith. And what I mean by that is, one person may say, okay, we're going to have to do this co-parenting thing. Let's make it happen. Let's try to have something amicable or some type of pattern that we can follow that it benefits the child. The other person, on the other hand, could be on some stuff like, well, if he's not with me or if she's not with me, I'm going to derail this and I'm going to try everything in my power to make it worse. And that's not how you operate. So being able to be on the same sheet of music and setting your boundaries, that's the first step. And then being able to communicate, because if you guys are not communicating, and I'm not talking about communicating like, oh, I'm going to dangle the kid over your head. So if you're not doing what I'm saying, or if I'm still emotionally attached, then I'm going to use that kid to try to use him or her or them as a tool to now control you. And that's not cool either. So I think setting your boundaries, number one, being able to effectively communicate towards each other. So the end goal or the common goal is the child's well-being and the success of the child or the children. That's, for me, is going to be first and foremost on being able to operate in a healthy co-parenting situation.
I couldn't agree more. Boundaries and communication to me are the staple. They're the foundation of a good co-parenting relationship. I actually have other children from a previous relationship and things, and I have great co-parenting relationships with their moms. Like, great co-parenting relationships. Like I said, I've said before in the past, like, my youngest son's mom would call me and be like, "Hey, you're such a great father. Thank you for, being the father you are to my son." And I thank her in return, because she's a phenomenal mother. My ex-wife, my first wife, same situation. She's like, "I'm so glad the boys have you." Like, we have great co-parenting relationships, and it didn't start off that way. It started off rocky because, and this is one thing I want to talk about is, how do you navigate co-parenting when sometimes there's some hurt and some unhealed spaces involved between the adults? Because as the adults, we had an issue, or he was a bad spouse, or he was a bad mate, and they automatically translated to, well, he can't be a good father. And that's not true. Like, some bad spouses, bad boyfriends can be phenomenal fathers. Some bad women can be phenomenal mothers. Like, it doesn't always correlate to the relationship with the child. But with me, again, we learned to take ourselves out of the situation and always make it about our kids. Another thing, too, that a lot of guys like to do is they like to be a father. Not a lot of guys, but there's some guys that like to be fathers when they're getting sex, or when they're still, able to dibble and dabble back and forth with the mom. And I think some brothers don't realize that when you don't cut those emotions off, and you don't feed into that, you don't ever give the woman the opportunity to heal from the relationship, because even though to you it's just sex, there's still an emotional attachment for her. And a lot of times people will use the kids as a pawn or to dangle them, like you said. So what they'll do is, I'm sleeping with you because I'm getting sexual gratification, and she wants the relationship, and she's not getting that. So now she's using the kid, and he's using the kid to stay close to her. And it just becomes a big game. When, if you make it about the children, you set boundaries and you have great communication, then you won't have a lot of those issues.
Right. And I think to piggyback off of that, both people need to be mature adults. I think when certain people who go through these situations can be mature, leave the emotion out, be able to communicate, be able to have each other's boundaries and respect those boundaries, that's where the beginning of a healthy co-parenting relationship starts. A lot of times, or not a lot of times, but at times, you will see the man or the woman who sits up here and they still may want to have a family when it's convenient for them. But the fact of the matter is, if you're done with that person or you're done with those individuals, just be done with them. Like, just cut all ties, leave it alone, figure out what the best step is for your child. But again, a lot of times adults are not emotionally mature enough to be able to cut those ties, and it takes certain situations to happen. Sometimes it takes the kid or the children to call them out to say, "Hey, I thought it was this, but I just seen you coming out of dad's room or out of mom's room," or whatever the case may be. Then that aha moment comes on. It's like, oh man, they can see this, and they could be as young as 2 or 3, maybe even 4 years old, and now they're in a situation to where they have to start looking at themselves and make those changes, hopefully for the better.
No, I agree with that, and I think at the end of the day, it just always comes down to let's do what's best for the child,
Right.
and people need to realize that. Okay, so now you set boundaries, you have good communication, but let's say there's a disagreement. One big disagreement that I see all the time is financial support. You know, you have some men that feel like all they have to do is financial support, and they don't really realize that being a father is more than that. So they feel like because they provide financially, they don't have to do more. You have some women that feels like, you know, yeah, he's taking care of his son, he's or daughter, and he's buying things and doing this, but I need child support. And a lot of times when child support becomes a part of the equation, that's when it really gets muddy and messy. You know, the guys, especially if you have an active father, it feels like he shouldn't be paying child support. He should be able to take care of his kid. The women feel like, well, the child lives with me most of the time. You need to be paying child support. Like when there's those type of issues, how do you overcome that?
Oh man. I think I've been fortunate as far as truly sharing joint custody with my son. But I will say from a financial perspective, sometimes a man or a woman may only make a certain amount of money, and maybe the other parent is not being realistic, and they're looking like, oh well, yeah, you took care of this, but I do need this, or I need this. Again, it goes back to that child. At the end of the day, I think if you're able to provide the necessary things that that child needs, whether it be in food, if they're in sports, anything that is going to build them up, anything that's going to take them to the next level of success, those are the things that need to be discussed. And I think, again, having a level of maturity and being able to sit down and talk. Now, I'm not saying that a guy out here who's able to take care of his kid, if he just wants to not be in that kid's life and you're just a paycheck, then you're going to have to break bread or do what you need to do because you don't want to be in that kid's life. And unfortunately, it's going to come back and bite you down the road. Or on the flip side, if a guy is doing everything that he needs to do and wants to be in that child's life, we talked about on another episode, ladies, stop playing games. Or guys, if you're in that situation, stop playing games, because at the end of the day, the games that you're playing, you're doing them because you're still emotionally attached. You need to back off. You need to go get some healing. Go seek a counselor. Go through the steps. Go through the process, because unless you do that, at some point you're going to derail the relationship that you're going to have with your child. And the fact of the matter is, when the child does get a certain age and they're able to make those decisions for themselves, like, hey, you know, I'm going to just go stay with my dad from now on. I'm at the age, I'm 14, I'm 15. I want to do that. Or they may say the same thing. Hey, dad, I want to go stay with my mom. And then it's like, okay, you depended on this financial because this kid was a paycheck. Now, when that paycheck is gone or that paycheck is with the other parent, now what do? Now, are you going to kick in? Are you going to now supplement because that child's living with them full time? And a lot of times they'll be like, nah, keep your money. You good. But you're going to miss out on this opportunity with your child to have a relationship. And that's what it's about, building this relationship, making sure that you see them to the finish line of the beginning of adulthood. Obviously, you're always going to be their parent, but you want to get them the best jump that they can so they can start their young career, their young lives, and be successful in this world.
No, I agree with that fully. One thing you said too, you said get some therapy, you know, or get some healing. And one thing I want to point out to people is that, you know, I push therapy all the time. You know, actual therapist, not just your pastor, not just your friend, not just somebody you can vent to, but an actual therapist who can give you tools to help you be a better you. You can go to therapy with your co-parenting partner and not be a couple. So understand that there is couples therapy, but you can also go to therapy and say, hey, listen, we want to be better co-parents. Can you help us do that? And they can give you tools and resources to help you do that. So don't think therapy has to be just about you healing individually. You can heal those hurts and those issues that you had in that past relationship that are preventing you from being good co-parents. So don't forget about that option, that you can go to therapy, even, I don't want to say as a couple, but as a former couple, to better co-parent.
As a co-parenting family. And I will say this about therapy. A lot of times I think people kind of get scared because they'll reach out to a therapist. This is the first time that they're talking to them. They may go meet with them, sit down, and that therapist may not be a good fit. But guess what? It's just like car insurance or anything else. You got to shop around. Find somebody who's going to be a good fit for you, and not just somebody who's a yes man or a yes woman. Somebody who is going to challenge you. Somebody is going to help you get through certain processes or give you some exercises to do. And then if you're doing this as a co-parenting group, like I said, you have to find the best fit that's going to work for you guys. Like what works for this couple who's doing co-parenting may not work for this couple. Everything is different. So take the time, the necessary time to do the research that you need to do, vet these people out, and find the best therapist, licensed therapist for you and your ex-spouse or ex-girlfriend or boyfriend and the child or the children. When you do that, you're intentionally wanting to make this unit stronger, and ultimately it's going to benefit the kids.
I agree. And real quick, back to child support, I do want to say this. I am against child support for active fathers. And there's a lot of people that give me slack for that. And I've had women say, oh, you don't want to take care of your children. I said, no, I don't want to be on child support because it's not because I don't want to take care of my children. It's because I want to take care of my children. I want my children to see me provide for them, see me do for them, see me actively be their father in every form. I've stated before, I'm on child support, been on child support for a while with some of my children, and I've always raised them as if I wasn't. And that sometimes that meant hard choices. Like I told you before, I had this Dodge Magnum on 24-inch rims and TV screens and all this stuff in it. And I remember I'm at work and the guy calls me. He's like, hey, man, they're repoing your car in the parking lot. And I said, yeah, I know. I knew it was coming because I didn't have the money to pay child support, pay my car note, pay for rent, and do all the other things that I had to do to live. And the only way I could have done it is if I would have got a second job. But at the time, I had a temporary order where I had my children every day after school and every other weekend. So I had them for a few hours after work, and I had them every other weekend. And if I got a second job, I lost that time. Well, again, I knew my father, but my father really didn't raise me. And I was like, I don't want my children going through that. So I literally said, I'm not going to work a second job. I'm going to take that time with my kids. And if that meant losing the car that I loved or the big rims and all, then that's what it meant. That's what I did. Those are the sacrifices that I made. But I remember times to where, I remember one weekend in particular to where I told her that I had to work or something, and it was a lie. The real reason why I told her I had to work and I couldn't get the kids that weekend was because I didn't have the money to feed them. And when you're a man, you're a provider, and you've always worked hard your whole life, and I actually make good money or decent money. But when you're that way and you're like, man, I can't even feed my kids this weekend. Like, man, that's an emotional roller coaster that I don't think any man should ever have to go on. And I feel like I think child support is needed and necessary, but I think it should be for men who live in a different state because they don't have the same expenses because they're not actively taking care of the child, or men that are not active. But if you're an active father, you have the same expenses that the mother has. She has to pay for an extra room. She has to pay for lights and gas. She has to pay for food. I have those same expenses. I can't have 4 kids and live in a studio apartment. They got to have bedrooms. They got to have clothes. They have lights, gas. They have to have all of that stuff. And then women will say, well, I have the kids more. But a lot of time the system would create that situation for you. What I mean is if I go to court, it was customary for the father to get 1 day a week and every other weekend. He can ask for custody, and when men be like, I'm taking custody, I'm getting full custody, a lot of that's hogwash. Unless the woman's unfit, most men are not getting that. But you should be able to get joint custody. I shouldn't lose rights to my children because I don't want to be with the mom. I shouldn't be pushed aside and said, hey, you get 1 day a week and every other weekend because you don't want to be in the same home. I should get joint custody. To me should be an automatic situation. And again, the whole child support issue, my opinion is that, and again, this is different if like one parent is well off and the other one just can't even make ends meet. That could be a different situation. But if we're both working, we both make a decent wage, a decent living. I feel you should provide your home. I provided my home. We split everything for the child that's outside our home: school clothes, pictures, sports activity, all those things like that. But it shouldn't just be about the money, And then on the flip side, I hate it when the men do pay child support and then they're like, well, she used my child support to go to the club. The question shouldn't be of if she used her child support for this or that. It should be, are your children taken care of? Because if you do have to pay child support, the only thing that matters is that they're taken care of. It doesn't matter to me if she takes that child support check and signs it over to the club, right? Because she had to use some money to take care of my children. So if she uses her money and reimburses herself with my money, then my money still went to help the kids.
Right.
At the end of the day, the question should be, are the children taken care of? Let's stop the game of give me all your money. Even if you're struggling, I don't care because I do so much and I need and I need this or that. And it shouldn't be about, well, hey, I'm paying this money and you're not spending it in the right places. It's like, hey, if I have to pay, I'm going to pay. Are the children taken care of? If they're not, that's a different ball game. And if the woman doesn't necessarily, I don't want to say need the money, but she's not struggling to make ends meet, then if this father's active in providing financially, emotionally, all this stuff, then let him do that.
And I think the problem with the child support is just the way society is set up today. I think the courts, obviously, is big money and it's big business. So if the courts are able to somehow, let's just say child support is $600 a month, or let's say $1,000 a month, they're able to take this $1,000, somehow they're going to get their court fees from it, and then they send it to the parent who's going to be the recipient, or the children who's supposed to be the recipient of it. So if, again, goes back to my statement, if people were actually adults about this and were smart, then you already know, okay, well, I got to pay $1,000. I'm going to just send it directly to you. Like, why are we going through the courts? And I think if a lot of people start thinking that way, then you kind of cut out some of the other BS that's going on, and now you're communicating. Now, maybe then it goes from, okay, I'm sending you the $1,000 a month because I live in a different state, or I'm just not active, to now it's just like, well, shoot, I'm doing this. We ain't going through the courts. We're being amicable. I may want to see my kid or my children and start spending more time and start getting involved, and who knows what happens from there. But I think just being able to be adults about things, why do you need the court? But the court comes in on both sides when the man or the woman is not emotionally stable, or they have something that they still feel for the other person, and they're trying to use it as a tool of control. In a lot of cases, I think that's where child support can get misconstrued, is where people are not fully being transparent with themselves, and they just want to keep somebody on the hook because they still have feelings for them, and they have not let them go. So I think that's just my take on it. But again, if somebody, like you said, if somebody's out of state and they're unable to be an active father or an active mother, because it goes both ways, then by all means, you need to be taking care of the kid, because it's two people that made one. One shouldn't just be having the burden of just taking care of the kid by themselves. Send some help. And it also, again, we get so hung up on child support. Man, take that time and fly in, or fly your kid to you, or you go fly in so you can spend and have a relationship with them. These kids, they need that. They need this world is crazy. Technology, all they're doing is looking at their phone, and you got everything going. They need as many people in their life to help them be successful at life.
Message.
And that's why the episode is called It Takes a Village, because it really does take a village. And you even talked about, if that person dates somebody else, or there's another step parent that becomes a step parent, and that other person, is another resource for that child. My question is, how do you navigate that when it comes to co-parenting? So now you set boundaries, you have good communication, the finances or child support issue is settled, everything's good. Now your ex meets somebody new, and they're bringing that person into your child's life. What does that look like?
So what's happened with me? My biggest thing, I think from day one, even before there was somebody that she may have been interested in, or even if I'm interested in someone else, I set those boundaries and guidelines. I just said, hey, I don't care who you date. I don't care what you do. At the end of the day, my only requirements are that that other person respects my son. My son be respectful because I teach him to be respectful, and there's no issues. If y'all have issues, like, keep that between y'all when he's out of the house, if it's my week and he's with me, you guys handle that. But if he's in a safe environment, if he feels comfortable, I have no problems. I have no issues, and that's just what it is. But that's where I'm at in life. A lot of people can't handle that because they see, oh no, you're not going to have another woman in the house with my son, or you're not going to have another guy in the house with my son or my daughter. But you have to also think, like, that parent should have the best interest of their child too. Half is yours, half is theirs. So hopefully you go into a situation and you could be amicable about it and just set those guidelines up front. Now, if I felt like my son was in danger, or if I had any concerns, then I'm not just going to go to her. We're all going to sit down and have a conversation. Now, from there, if I feel comfortable or everything is good to go, okay, cool. At least it's addressed and we know where we're at. But if there is danger, or if I feel like, nah, this is not it, trust and believe, as a father, I'm going to act. And yes, we both have our rights to our son, or you would have rights to your child or your children. But anything that's going to put them in danger, you have to remove that kid from the danger so you can reassess it. And maybe there may be come a time to where you can integrate them back in, or maybe it never happens. But you always have to put that child first and make sure that they're not in any type of danger.
100% agree. And I tell people all the time, it's tough to navigate this because it's usually a high emotional situation when other people are involved. But here's the reality. The reality is that you don't get to dictate who they date.
Right.
And I have no say in that. So my ex, if she's dating a guy that I don't like or I don't care for, I can't decide that for her. I can't say he can't be around my daughter or anything like that. All I can say is don't let it be no bullshit. You know, we had that thing called Stop the Bullshit last time. Well, don't let it be no bullshit. Because one thing about my children, anybody that knows me, I'm not no Billy Bad Butt. I ain't no tough guy. I ain't no thug. I ain't none of that. But I'm a father. And if something happens with my child, then you're going to see a whole nother side of me that is not going to be pretty. Like, I don't play when it comes to my children. You know, outside of that, I have no say in it. I have to trust you as a parent that you're going to be able to make a good decision when it comes to who you date or who you bring into my child's life.
That's true. And so now me on the flip side, so I've dated. So since I've been divorced, I've dated, but none of the women that I've dated have ever met my son. And I intentionally did that just for the simple fact, the only time I think somebody will meet my son is if it's a serious relationship. I feel comfortable that person has an understanding like, hey, this is what the situation is. And at some point, then I would probably integrate my son in, see how they mesh. Obviously, he's 13. He may just be like, okay, yeah, she cool, dad, and just keep it moving. But I think when he was 9, 10 years old, it's still like he still isn't very impressionable, and he's looking. And had I just been like, oh, okay, well, this is the woman of the week, he's getting confused and he's looking, but then also he's gonna keep this in his memory bank. He's gonna be 20 years old and like, well, shoot, my dad had women coming in and out, so shoot, I'm about to do the same thing. And then that's where you create this cycle. So I've been very intentional on, like I said, no one has met my son when it comes to me, and I'm not saying that it will never happen. At some point, if I meet a nice woman and I'm really feeling her and we want to take a relationship to the next level, then it'll happen accordingly.
No, I feel that 100%. I did have a situation with like the first girl that I dated after my divorce, and I actually met her through my daughter. Our daughters were best friends, and I met her through my daughter, and I was head over heels for this girl. I was like, oh, this is it. Like, you know, even though I just got out of a relationship, I'm like, this is it, Lord, thank you, Jesus. You know, and my ex, I don't know what caused it. She created a lot of drama in that situation. I mean, to where, you know, she was trying to get physical. I mean, it got crazy. Like, people that know me know the situation. It got really crazy. And there had to be boundaries that were set, and it never happened again after that. I think after that, she kind of got a hold of her emotions. But that was her issue. Like, I don't care what you do, but don't have somebody around my kid. And I remember I told her, I said, I get to choose who's around my child. You don't have any say in that. You know, unless that person is harmful, I get to choose, you know. And I think people forget that. We think that it's like, hey, I don't like that person, so I don't want them around my kid. That's not how life works. Right. You know, like I said, unless you have a legitimate complaint where that person is harmful or there's something wrong, that's not how life works. And I understand that. Like, sometimes you got to take yourself out of the situation and say, listen, I would rather this person be in a happy, healthy relationship and for them to model that for my child than for me to feel like I get a say in who the person is, because the person that they may like, which usually they ain't gonna like anybody. Right. But if there's a person that they do like, that might be the worst person to be around your child. Like, you don't get to dictate that. And I wish more people understood that.
I think in that situation, usually what happens is people are still not over their ex. So they could say anything that they want to say, but emotions, actions, they do not lie. So somebody can be in a relationship, full-fledged marriage or a relationship, get divorced, get out of that relationship, date somebody on day one, but the minute if that other spouse or that ex-spouse does something, then they're like, oh, no, we can't have this, but they're still emotionally attached. They just don't want to admit it yet, and they have not taken the proper measures to go get the proper healing that they need and the therapy that they need. And unfortunately, that also creates a cycle, and it just keeps going and keeps going. And this is like, okay, cool. At one point, we 5 years down the road, I don't want you, you don't want me. Can you just let it go? Like,
Right.
what? Like, just let it go. Like, what are we on? And at the end of the day,
Hold on.
Let it go.
I had a double hit that one.
right.
Or it's too late. You gotta let it go. You're right. You gotta let
Absolutely.
it go, man. Move on.
Right. Because if you don't, like, what are you doing this for? Because what's going to happen, it's going to be 5, 10, 15 years down the road, and you're still letting someone who doesn't even, you're not even a thought to that person, rule your mind. And you will never be yourself until you let that go.
And it's going to be hard to co-parent because let's say that woman that in that situation, you know, we ended up breaking up behind that situation because it was just too much drama, and I respected that. I got it. But let's say we didn't break up. Let's say we got married. Now you have to deal with this person potentially for the rest of your child's life, you know, or at least until they become an adult. You have to deal with this person that you started all this drama with that wasn't going anywhere in the first place.
Right.
Like I said, you don't get a say in it. I think if you have a complaint, you voice it to your ex and let them know your complaints. But you have to do it with the understanding that I still have to respect their decision.
Right. And I want to say this. So a message to all the real mothers, all the real fathers, just because your ex significant other gets into a relationship, that does not mean that they take your place. They just add to. And I think sometimes men may get into their own head, women may get into their own head, and they're like, oh, well, shoot, he got somebody else or she got somebody else. They're trying to replace me. It's like, no, they've moved on from you, and they're trying to find the best person that matches them, because obviously what y'all had going on, it didn't work. So in that state, I beg you to both parties, make sure that you go do the things that you need to do to get yourself together mentally, because it's not even about you. It's about what they got going on. You're always going to be that father. You're always going to be that mother. And this is to the active mothers and fathers who are going through this situation. I'm not saying the deadbeat moms and dads, because they're in a whole different dimension, but people who are actually trying to be the best person that they can for their kids. When that significant other gets somebody else, it is what it is. You should look at it now. Okay, well, if I'm single and I'm not dating right now, you should be heightened on making yourself better every day, and be heightened on those kids or that child that you guys have together, because now you can put all your focus and all your energy into something good, and make sure that they get to the finish line. Make sure that they're able to be responsible adults once they graduate from high school and they go on to college, and then they start getting their own family. So like, those are the things that I think co-parents should be at the forefront of their minds, getting your kids to the finish line of success.
I agree. And one thing I've always said is, as a father, but it goes toward mothers also, that nobody can take that job from you. It's
Right.
a job that can't be taken away, only given away.
Yep.
Meaning the only way a man's going to come in and be this father figure to my son or my daughter or whoever it is if I'm not. If I give that away to them. You know, other than that, if I'm there, like you said, they'll look at that person as an addition. They'll look at them as a blessing, as somebody that they appreciate and they're thankful that they have in their life, but they'll never let that person be take the place of their dad. You know, I was a stepfather. You know, I had 3 bonus children who I love with all my heart. Like, those are my babies, man. Like, no, I've been in their life since they were little. And they're all, you know, teenagers or adults now. And they have a father. They have an active father who's always been in their life and, you know, was never absent from their life. He moved out of state for a while, but he wasn't absent, you know. And in the beginning, I think there was some issue where he was like, you know, why are they calling, you know, he's not their stepdad, whatever. But once he saw that I wasn't a threat to him, and once he saw that, hey, he's doing his job and nobody can take that from him, that all kind of got squashed and worked out. Again, communication, boundaries, and things like that. And like I said, at the end of the day, we all working together to make these kids the best kids possible. And they love me to death. I mean, even after the divorce, they call, they check on me. I check on them. Like, those are my babies, but he's still their father.
Right.
Like, they don't look at me and say, oh, that's my dad. Now, they looked at me and said, that's my stepdad. They looked at me and said, I appreciate him being in my life. They looked at me and said, man, he showed me a lot, taught me a lot. He's been there for me. He's supportive. But they never looked at me and said, he's my father. He took the place of my dad, because their dad continued to be their father. Again, that job can't be taken. It can only be given away.
Right.
And I think if people take themselves out of it and just make it about the children, then it works. Even to this day, like, he's remarried. I divorced their mom. And yet I can still call his wife and say, hey, Jay wants to come spend the night with, Callie, which is the other daughter. And they're like, cool, she's welcome. Come on. Like, everybody works together, and we make everything about the children, and there's no egos or situations going on.
Right, right. And I think to piggyback off of that, the only time I think a child would probably look at somebody that is not their biological parent as a true dad is if, one, unfortunately, the parent passed away, or number two, that mother or father is a true deadbeat and they want nothing to do with the kid. Because if somebody steps in that role and they become the mother, they become the father, at some point, especially if they're young, that's all they're going to know. So now they're moving accordingly, and they have that level of respect, even though they had or they have a biological parent. That's the only time that would come into play.
No, I agree with that. Now, so we talked about all the aspects of co-parenting and everything. Here's my thing. What if you guys are good at co-parenting, and now an issue arises, and that stuff can be fragile, and now all of a sudden you're at each other's throats as parents. So now there's a beef going on, and nothing seems to make it right. How do you get back on track?
So are you saying like a beef between the two parents?
The parents, right. So let's say, example, I go out of town, okay? And maybe I have some people that I trust, watch my daughter while I'm out of town. And the mom is like, I didn't want her over there. Or I didn't think that was a good idea. And now I'm like, well, I trust that person. I chose that person. But now there's some drama behind it, and there's issues created. Like, now we used to have a good co-parenting relationship. Now we don't. How do we get back on track? Because remember, these co-parenting relationships can go from infant till 18, 19 years old. So when we talk about almost 20 years of a relationship, there's going to be some ups and downs. So when you're going through that down, how do you get back to an up?
I think the biggest thing it still boils down to that communication and boundaries, what I was talking about earlier. So in that situation, that other parent is going to have to trust your instincts, because it goes to, you're not going to put your child in any danger. A real parent is not going to do that. So if you have trusted individuals that you deal with, they're vetted, your child has spent significant time with them before, and you feel comfortable enough and the child feels comfortable enough, quite frankly, if you give your ex-spouse or your ex-significant other the right of, hey, I'm going out of town, do you think you can watch him, or you can watch her, or you can watch them? If they say, oh, no, I got something going on, okay, cool, at least you did that. So now it's one of those things where you're finding your second option. The second option is like, oh, yeah, for sure. Bring it by. It could be a mom, which would be their grandmother. It could be somebody who you truly trust. And that kid is going to go spend the night or spend the weekend with them. And when you come back, you always obviously checking in on them. Everything is good to go. Now, if it's somebody who, if that, let's say, for instance, that parent has bad judgment or puts their kids in compromising positions, and let's say there's somebody who, knowing good and damn well they should not be around, but they just go pawn them off for the sake of their enjoyment, or they want to go be in the streets or go have some fun, then in my opinion, that's dangerous as hell. Because why would you do that, especially, and not even giving the other parent an opportunity to watch their child, or they're just trying to be petty. So it boils down to that, their lack of, I guess, emotional intelligence when it comes to, oh man, I got to pick up on this. Let me go ask my ex-spouse if you can do this. So I think those are the issues that I can see in that scenario. And the way around it is being able to communicate, setting those boundaries, making sure that everyone's on the same shit in music. And when you do that, now it's like, okay, there shouldn't be any room for argument. If I say, hey, I'm going out of town or I'm doing this, can you watch XYZ? Yes, I can. Okay, cool. This is when I'll be back. Won't. Or, no, I can't. Okay, thank you. I have somebody in line. This is what's going to happen. They have to accept it. It's just like bringing in the new boyfriend or the new girlfriend. You have to accept it. That half of that parent, they have their best interest, and they're not going to put their child in harm's way.
No, I agree with that. And the one thing I want to add to that on how to get back on track is don't be afraid to apologize. It's okay. I think one episode we talked about dating, you said players mess up too. Fathers mess up too. Mothers mess up too. And I think it's okay to say, hey, you know what? I could have handled that better. Next time I'll do X, Y, Z. Or next time, let's if you didn't like how that was done, then let's discuss what we could do that we both agree on to where I don't feel like, you're trying to control my life or my situation, but I also can respect your feelings in that situation. So while you're right, they don't have any say. If I trust this person with my daughter, I can do that. I also don't want to intentionally create a situation or beef. So if we can work together and find something that we both agree on, then I definitely would like to do that. But I think sometimes people don't want to apologize. They don't want to be cordial or respectful because that's their ex and they feel like they don't have to. Like, it's still okay to say please and thank you and you're welcome and I'm sorry. Like, those things really work toward having a good co-parenting relationship.
So just to kind of switch topics, I have a question for you because I know I've dealt with it in the past. What do you do when you're co-parenting and a tough situation pops up? So say, for instance, your son or your daughter is going through puberty and you have to kind of start having some talks, or let's just say the son or daughter or children's like maybe not doing so well in school or something's happening, like an attitude adjustment. How do you guys get on track to ensure that kid gets back on track? Because ultimately when you co-parent, they need to hear from both sides. And then at the end of the day, you need to say, hey, this is what this is. We agree on it. Boom. So, like, how do you go through those situations?
I think sometimes you just got to remove your pride and understand who's better at what. What I mean is, if I have a daughter, right, if she's going through puberty, who better to talk to her about that than her mom, somebody who went through it. So I'm going to put my pride aside and let her mom handle that one. Or like with my youngest son, Jordan, I have great kids, man. I really can't complain. I have really good kids. Jordan sometimes can get off track. Like he's not a bad kid, but he's like his dad. He likes to talk. I tell people all the time, as a black man, I can go to a KKK meeting and leave with 3 friends. Like, I just talk to everybody. I talk to everybody, and he's that way.
You gonna have a hood on too?
No, I ain't gonna do all right. Ain't no, this ain't Dave Chappelle. No, but all jokes aside, I talk to everybody, and he's the same way. So there'll be times where he gets a little off track in school, and his mom knows that when it comes to the disciplinary part, the disciplining that I handle that pretty well. So and I don't spank kids, I don't do anything. Like, we just we respect each other. So she'll call me and be like, hey, call your son. So I'll call my son. Hey, son, what happened to school today? Oh, Dad, man, that teacher, knock it off. That teacher ain't coming to school to just pick on you. So what happened? Well, see, I was talking and blah, blah, blah. And this is literally our conversation. Okay, do you know what's expected of you? Yes. Are you going to do what's expected of you? Yes. Are you going to apologize to that teacher? It ain't her job to parent you. Yes. Are we going to have this talk again, or is this good enough? This is good enough. And then he gets his act together. There's nothing else that needs to be said. But again, it's because she's able to put her pride aside and say, hey, you know what? His dad's a little better at this. I'm going to let him handle that. And when it comes to my child, I'm able to say, hey, she's a little better at this. I'm going to let her handle this. Or sometimes we both may talk. It may be she talks to them from her point of view. And then she says, hey, you know what? I'm going to call your dad too, because, he might want to talk to you about it also. Or I might say, hey, listen, this is what I feel. This is what I think, but I want you to talk to your mom about it too and see what she thinks about it. You just really kind of have to work together.
No, that's true. So for me, it's definitely both of us standing on business, because my son is very, very clever, and I identify early. Like, it's funny, he'll try to go to his mom and say one thing, and if she turns him down, then he thinks he can come to me. But then on certain subjects, he already know not to ask me anything, so he'll go ask his mom. But we all communicate. We have a group chat between the 3 of us, and if something pops up, something at school, which is rare, if he's talking or whatever the case may be, Hey, we get the email, boom, boom, boom. We in this chat. Hey, what's going on? And like I said, I know he sees it and he already knows like, oh shoot, whoever I'm staying with on this week, I might have to answer him soon. And then it's being able to talk and being able to the three of us maybe hopping on the phone or being face to face and saying, hey, we already know we shouldn't be having this conversation. But since we are having this conversation, this is how this is going to go. Going forward, do we have an understanding? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. So I will give my ex-wife kudos on that. We don't have a problem being able to at least try to work together to make sure that he stays on track if he gets off track. For the most part, good kid. The biggest thing with all these kids is just this technology, and they're so just engulfed in it, and it's like there's things outside of it. So, but then for me, it's kind of hard sometimes because if he's with her on her week, it's like I could monitor, I could look at his phone a little bit, but I got so much going on. It's like, okay, well, shoot, she's gonna have to do something on her week, and then if he's with me, then it's like, okay, well, cool. I have to make sure I'm making a conscious effort. Hey, get off that phone. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. Start getting into the groove of things, and that's how we work together. So,
Well, and one thing I want to point out too is that you got to be a united front.
yeah,
Still, even though you're not together, you got to be a united front. And so what I mean is like Jordan, he'll come to me. He came to me one time because his mom, she's heavy about school, and Jordan's a straight A student, but it's because she stays on his case. Otherwise, Jordan would slack, and she's great with that. So shout out to my son's mom for that. But anyhow, so she'll call a teacher in a heartbeat and be like, hey, this assignment says this grade, can he redo this or whatever? And Jordan said, Dad, I want mom to stop doing that. You guys taught me to advocate for myself. I want to go to the teacher and say this. And so instead of saying, yeah, your mom is wrong and she shouldn't do that, you're getting older, I said, you know what, son? I said, I'm hearing you. I need to talk to your mom about it. I said, so let me talk to your mom about it, and then we'll talk to you about it together. And that's what happened. I called his mom and said, hey, you know what? He's getting older. I think he's right. He wants to advocate for himself. Let's let him do that and see how he does. And she's a mama bear. That's her only son. She's a mama bear. So she's like, all right, I'll try it. And it worked out well. He was able to advocate for himself. It actually took some stuff off of her plate, so she didn't have to be. Now she still stays on and still checks it, whatever, because she's going to do that. But it gave a little bit of breathing room because it allowed him to do it. But it wouldn't have happened if we wasn't on the same page. Like sometimes parents will get in there and they'll be like, they'll let their opinion of the other parent come across to the child. So it'll be like, well, mom is doing this. Well, man, I told her not to be doing that. She always tripping. I don't do that. We are a united front. We work together. These kids, man, it's a battle sometimes with these kids. And you got to have your tag team partner.
right,
And just because y'all aren't partners don't mean that y'all can't partner up sometimes.
right.
Like, we got to work together for these kids.
Yeah, they'll try to, if you let them, they will manipulate you because they know exactly what they want, how to get it. And it's like, you just got to shut it down and put 10 toes down and be a united front.
And you said earlier, you talked about how the kids know.
Mm-hmm.
The kids know. So they know, hey, mom and dad don't talk. Mom and dad don't like each other. So, I can tell mom I'm doing this and then tell dad I'm doing this and really go do this. Again, it doesn't mean they're a bad kid because they can be a little sneaky or a little manipulative, because we all did that as teenagers or at a certain age. We all tried it, see what you can get away with, see how far you can get. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad kid, but sometimes kids do that. And if you're always against each other, then you make it easier for them to do that.
Yep. No, I agree.
But everybody, we're about to get out of here. Our time is wrapping up. I do want to say this, though. You got to realize with co-parenting, it's going to test your pride, your patience, and your peace. But you got to stay focused on the purpose, and the purpose of the children. So make them the purpose, make them the focus. Put your pride aside. Learn how to effectively co-parent, to talk, to set those boundaries, and just make it about the kids.
Absolutely, I agree.
Also, if you know any fathers, man, that are going through this or struggling with co-parenting, or any mothers dealing with that, man, share this video with them, because we want to have these conversations. If you're a co-parent and you want to have this conversation with the co-parent because of some things you want to see change and you don't know how to approach them, man, tell them check out the episode and talk to them about it. Like, this is what this is for. This is supposed to be conversation starters.
Don't be afraid to jump in the comments, because we need more comments, and we could spark this conversation. Tag folks. Feel free to get them involved in the comments, and let's just have healthy discussions on this co-parenting or any of the other past episodes that we've had, because we enjoy interacting with individuals, and I think it's something that's needed in this world. So
definitely. And lastly, if you like the content, if you enjoy what we're talking about, you like how we bring it to you, then please like the Facebook page, like the YouTube channel, share the TikToks, like be our advocate. Otherwise, it makes it harder to keep bringing this content.
Right.
Anyway, thank you for tuning in. I'm Jason.
I'm Brandon.
Y'all have a good one.
Peace.
Peace.